Most people walk through life believing a comfortable lie, that if you work hard, follow the rules, and do everything the right way, the world will eventually reward you. That if you study what they tell you to study, memorize what they tell you to memorize, and stay inside the lines, you'll be safe, you'll be respected, you'll be successful. But what if I told you that this entire belief is the system's greatest trap? Because the system doesn't hate the uneducated. It hates the self-educated, not the ones who know nothing, but the ones who dare to learn outside the cage. A self-taught person is unpredictable, uncontrolled, unafraid, and worst of all, they can't be owned. From the moment you're born, the system begins shaping you, not into a thinker, but into a follower. They tell you what is smart and what is dangerous. They decide which questions you're allowed to ask and which ones will get you punished. Think back to school. You weren't rewarded for creativity. You were rewarded for memorizing the answer printed in the back of their textbook. You weren't praised for challenging the teacher. You were scolded for disrupting the class. Every bell, every grade, every rule, every schedule, all designed to teach one thing: obey. Ask yourself this: why do schools all look the same? Why do they teach the same subjects in the same order, in the same format around the entire world? Because they were never built to create thinkers. They were built to create predictable citizens, predictable workers, predictable consumers. The system is a machine, and machines don't like wildcards. A self-taught person, someone who educates themselves without permission, doesn't fit into that machine. They don't wait for approval. They don't depend on institutions. They don't need a stamp, a certificate, or a shiny logo to prove their worth. A self-taught mind learns what it wants, when it wants, and at the speed it chooses. That alone is enough to terrify the people in charge, because control requires one thing: predictability. If the system knows what you believe, it knows how to control you. If it controls what you learn, it controls what you think. And if it controls what you think, it controls who you become. But a self-taught person breaks that chain. They step outside the script, and that's where the danger begins. Think about this. Why does society praise the student who never questions anything but mocks the one who drops out to learn on their own? Why does the traditional path feel so safe when thousands follow it every year and still end up lost, broke, and dependent? Because the system sells you safety while quietly stealing your power. It convinces you that without its approval, you are nothing, that without a degree, you're unqualified, that without a boss, you're irresponsible, that without a title, you're irrelevant. But here's the truth most people never discover. The moment you stop needing the system loses its power over you. This is why self-taught people make the world nervous, because they prove, simply by existing, that the system is unnecessary, that intelligence doesn't come from a classroom, that success doesn't require permission, that value doesn't come from a piece of paper. It comes from what you can do. Look at every great disruptor, every great builder, every great innovator who changed the world. They didn't learn inside the lines. They learned by tearing the lines apart. Einstein wasn't accepted by academia. Steve Jobs dropped out. Tesla was dismissed. Da Vinci had no formal education. Machiavelli himself was self-taught, studying power not from books, but from the brutal reality of politics and human nature. These people didn't follow the map. They created new maps, new roads, new worlds. And every time a self-taught mind rises, the system trembles. Because if too many people discover they can learn without chains, without permission, without paying thousands for an outdated education, the entire structure collapses. This is why the system doesn't just ignore self-taught people, it fights them. It labels them arrogant, irresponsible, reckless, dangerous. Not because they lack talent, but because they lack obedience. A self-taught person has something the system cannot produce: a free mind. A mind that asks questions without fear. A mind that observes, adapts, and evolves. A mind that can rebuild from zero and rise again and again. You can imprison a body, but you cannot imprison a mind that teaches itself. And that is the true threat. Before we dive deeper into the hidden mechanisms the system uses to control your education, before we break down how power manipulates your beliefs, before we reveal how to weaponize your self-learning, you must understand this first truth. The system was never built to make you powerful. It was built to make you dependent. And the moment you step outside it, you become dangerous. Before you ever choose what to believe, the system has already chosen the options for you. Most people think they're thinking, but they're only repeating. Repeating what their teachers said, what the media said, what their culture said, what authority said. True thinking is rare, because true thinking is dangerous. You see, the system doesn't need to control your actions directly. It only needs to control your beliefs. Once it controls your beliefs, your behavior becomes predictable, automatic, mechanical. Control the mind, and the person follows. So the system uses 3 invisible chains. Chains you were trained to accept long before you even noticed they existed. Chain 1, the illusion of choice. Chain 2, the illusion of freedom. Chain 3, the illusion of truth. Let's break them open. Chain 1, the illusion of choice. Imagine walking into a grocery store with 40 different brands of cereal. It looks like freedom, right? But all 40 brands are owned by the same 2 companies. The system does the same thing with your beliefs. It offers you options that all lead to the same conclusion: obedience. You can choose this career or that career, but you can't choose to escape the debt that comes with them. You can vote for this candidate or that candidate, but both are funded by the same interests. You can follow this ideology or that ideology, but both were created inside the same institutions. The system doesn't care which option you pick as long as you pick from their shelf. A self-taught person builds their own shelf, their own categories, their own definitions. That alone breaks the illusion. Chain 2, the illusion of freedom. Everyone is told you're free. You can make your own choices. But try stepping outside the path society expects, and you'll immediately see the truth. Drop out of school? You're throwing your life away. Start your own business instead of taking a job. You're being unrealistic. Think differently from the mainstream narrative? You're misinformed, uneducated, or dangerous. Freedom? Until your freedom threatens the structure. The system punishes independence socially long before it needs to punish it legally. Ridicule, shaming, fear, isolation. These are the first weapons of control. A self-taught person faces these weapons early and learns to become immune. Chain 3, the illusion of truth. The system teaches you that truth comes from authority, from textbooks, from experts, from official sources, from institutions. But truth that depends on authority is not truth. It's obedience disguised as certainty. Think about it. Every major breakthrough in history, every discovery, every invention, every revolutionary idea was initially rejected by authority. Not because it was wrong, but because it was uncontrolled. Authority protects itself before it protects truth. A self-taught person seeks truth directly, not filtered through institutions, not softened by politics, not approved by committees. This is why they become powerful. Their knowledge is earned, not handed down. Now ask yourself something uncomfortable. How many of your beliefs are truly yours? How many are inherited? How many were planted in your mind before you were old enough to question them? Your political opinions, your definition of success, your sense of morality, your fears, your insecurities, your limitations. How many of these did you choose and how many were chosen for you? Most people never ask. They're afraid to find out that their entire identity was manufactured. But the self-taught person, they are not afraid, because they understand something most people never realize. The system doesn't teach you how to think. It teaches you what to think. And once you accept that, you begin to see the bars of the cage that everyone else calls normal life. This is why the system hates self-taught individuals. Not because they are smarter, but because they are harder to control. A person who thinks independently cannot be manipulated by media. They cannot be pressured by groupthink. They cannot be frightened into obedience. They cannot be bribed with titles. They cannot be intimidated by authority. They are free in the only way that matters, mentally. And mental freedom threatens every structure of power. If you want to understand how deep this control goes, if you want to see the psychological tools they use against you every day, if you want to know how the system shapes your identity without you noticing, then stay with me. Because in the next part, we're going to expose the exact mechanisms the system uses to manufacture conformity, and how self-taught people break those mechanisms to rise above everyone around them. If the system only used rules and laws to control you, breaking free would be easy. You'd simply refuse to follow them. But the system is far more intelligent than that. It doesn't just control your actions. It controls your psychology, your fears, your desires, your impulses, your sense of identity. Because a person controlled from the outside can rebel, but a person controlled from the inside will police themselves. This is the system's true genius. It makes you obedient without realizing you're obeying. There are 3 primary psychological tools it uses. Each one is subtle, invisible, and devastatingly effective. Tool 1, manufactured fear tool. 2, social pressure tool. 3, identity programming. Let's break each one open. Tool 1, manufactured fear. Fear is the oldest form of control, but the system doesn't use physical fear, at least not at first. It uses psychological fear, fear of being wrong, fear of being judged, fear of being alone, fear of looking stupid, fear of disappointing others, fear of failing publicly. These fears are injected into you slowly, starting from childhood. A child raises their hand, gives the wrong answer, and the whole class laughs. The lesson learned is not try again. The lesson is never risk being wrong in front of others. A teenager chooses a different path and gets mocked, pressured, isolated. The lesson is stay with the group or suffer. An adult wants to pursue their passion, but is told it's too risky, unrealistic, impractical. The lesson is don't trust your own ambition. Fear becomes a leash, and most people give up the moment it tightens. But a self-taught person breaks the leash because they understand something simple. Fear is not a signal to stop. It's a signal that you're stepping outside someone else's limits. And stepping outside those limits is how all progress begins. Tool 2, social pressure. Humans fear exclusion more than hunger, more than pain, more than hard work. So the system weaponizes your deep biological need to fit in. It doesn't need to punish you. Society punishes you for it. Try saying you don't believe in the same opinions as your group. Watch how quickly people attack. Not because they're thinking independently, but because they've been programmed to defend the norm as if their life depends on it. Try breaking the career path your parents expect. You'll be told you're reckless, irresponsible, ungrateful. Try thinking differently from the majority. You become an outsider, a threat, a disruption. The system knows this, so it lets society do the disciplining. Most people never discover their true potential because their entire lives revolve around not upsetting others. But a self-taught person, they understand a truth that frees them. You cannot become exceptional while trying to be accepted by the average. They detach from the herd, and once they do, the pressure loses its power. Tool 3. Identity programming. This is the deepest level of control. The system doesn't just tell you what to do, it tells you who you are. It gives you labels: smart, dumb, introvert, extrovert, good student, bad student, gifted, below average. It gives you roles: the responsible one, the troublemaker, the quiet one, the obedient one. And once you accept an identity, you live inside it like a cage. You believe you can't do something, not because it's objectively impossible, but because your identity doesn't match it. People stay trapped for life because of identities they didn't create but inherited. You were never meant to define yourself. You were meant to be defined. But the self-taught mind breaks the programming. They realize identity is not discovered. Identity is built, piece by piece, skill by skill, choice by choice. A self-taught person becomes who they decide to become, not who the system assigns them to be. That is why they become powerful. Now let me ask you something. Which of these 3 tools has been used on you the most? Fear? Pressure? Identity? Be honest with yourself. Your awareness is the first step out of the psychological trap, because in the next part, we're going to take everything we've uncovered, the fears, the illusions, the mental cages, and flip the entire script. We're going to reveal how self-taught individuals turn these same tools into weapons of unstoppable growth, how they use the system's own psychology to escape the system entirely. If the system keeps most people small, obedient, and predictable, then the self-taught person is the anomaly, the glitch in the machine. The one who doesn't follow the path laid out for them, the one who refuses the script, the one who cannot be programmed. But here's what most people get wrong. Self-taught people aren't born different. They become different. They break the system from the inside, and they rise above it on purpose. They use strategies, conscious, deliberate strategies, to escape the mental prison the system tries to build. There are 3 primary methods they use. Method 1, strategic ignorance method. 2, self-directed mastery method. 3, the power of substitution. These 3 methods dismantle fear, destroy conformity, and unlock levels of ability that most people never reach. Let's go through them one by one. Method 1, strategic ignorance. Most people drown in information. They listen to every opinion, every piece of advice, every criticism, every warning. The result? They're paralyzed, confused, filled with doubt. A self-taught person does the opposite. They ignore, ruthlessly, intentionally, strategically. They don't listen to people who haven't built anything. They don't take advice from those who live inside the system. They don't let the fears of others shape their decisions. They practice strategic ignorance, which means I choose what enters my mind. I choose who influences my beliefs. I choose whose voice matters. Most people let everyone speak into their identity. A self-taught person lets almost no one in, because influence is power, and they don't give that power away carelessly. This is how they break free from the fear and pressure the system uses. They become immune. Method 2, self-directed mastery. The system teaches you to learn passively. Sit, listen, memorize, repeat. But mastery never comes from passive learning. It comes from self-directed learning. A process where you choose your path, your pace, your skills, your challenges. Self-taught individuals learn through obsession, not obligation. They don't wait for permission to start. They don't wait for someone to explain the basics. They don't wait for the right time, right degree, or right environment. They dive in. They experiment. They fail fast. They iterate relentlessly. And because they learn by doing, not by memorizing, they reach mastery far faster than those trapped in traditional systems. This is why the system fears them. They move at a speed institutions cannot match. A classroom teaches at the pace of the slowest student. A self-taught mind learns at the pace of ambition. That difference alone creates an unstoppable advantage. Method 3. The power of substitution. This is the method the system never expects. When self-taught people encounter a limitation, a gatekeeper, a barrier, a missing resource, a lack of opportunity, they don't stop. They substitute. Can't get a mentor? They study books, recordings, and history until the great minds of the world teach them. Can't afford formal education? They build their own curriculum using the internet, libraries, and experience. Can't get hired? They build their own projects, their own portfolio, their own path. Can't access a network? They create value so strong that networks come to them. Where others see a wall, the self-taught mind sees a challenge. What can I replace this with that gives me the same or better result? Substitution is the secret weapon that makes the system irrelevant. Because if every obstacle can be replaced with a different solution, then nothing can truly stop you. These three methods, strategic ignorance, self-directed mastery, and substitution, form the foundation of a self-taught person's power. But there's something even more important, something deeper, something that transforms a self-taught individual from simply independent into truly dangerous. It's the mindset shift that happens when you stop waiting for permission and start creating your own path. The moment you realize that your value comes from your abilities, your discipline, your resourcefulness, not from a certificate, not from an institution, not from external validation. This internal shift is what the system fears most. Because once a mind becomes self-reliant, it can no longer be controlled. When you understand this, the world stops being a maze and becomes an open field. You don't ask, what path should I follow? You ask, what path will I create? And that question changes everything. In the next part, we're going to explore what happens when you fully commit to this independence, how your mindset becomes a weapon, how your discipline becomes a force, and how your life transforms when you embrace the path of the self-taught warrior. There comes a moment in every self-taught person's journey when the shift happens, a moment when everything finally clicks, a moment when they stop living as a product of the system and become a force outside of it. This moment is not loud, it's not dramatic, it's not something others notice, but internally, it changes everything. It is the moment you realize, I don't need the system, I can build myself. From that moment on, you start to develop a mindset that most people can't understand, a mindset that makes you calm, focused, confident, and dangerously capable. This mindset has 3 pillars. Pillar 1, extreme self-reliance, pillar. 2, strategic patience, pillar. 3, evolution without permission. These pillars create a kind of power no institution can compete with. Let's break them down. Pillar 1, extreme self-reliance. Most people depend on external structure. They need deadlines to stay disciplined. They need a boss to stay productive. They need validation to stay motivated. They need rules to feel safe. A self-taught person relies on none of that. They internalize their drive. They generate their own pressure. They set their own standards. Standards higher than any job, any teacher, or any institution would ever give them. They don't wake up and ask, what should I do today? They wake up knowing exactly what must be done because the mission is always alive in their mind. This level of self-reliance is rare. It is powerful. And yes, it's intimidating. Because once you no longer rely on the world to structure your life, you become immune to scarcity, immune to dependency, immune to manipulation. The system loses its leverage the moment you stop needing it. Pillar 2. Strategic patience. Self-taught individuals understand something the system never teaches. Mastery takes time, but time works for you when you're building yourself. The system trains people to expect fast results, fast validation, fast rewards. That's why most people quit the moment progress slows. But the self-taught mind operates differently. They know growth compounds. They know small improvements, repeated with discipline, become unstoppable over months and years. They don't rush, they don't panic, they don't compare themselves to others. They understand that the long game is where true dominance is built. Someone trained by the system seeks approval every day. A self-taught person seeks transformation over years. This is why they win. The world is full of sprinters. The self-taught are marathoners who build their own endurance. Strategic patience makes them calm in situations where others panic, focused when others are distracted, driven when others are discouraged. A patient mind is an unstoppable mind. Pillar 3. Evolution without permission. The system requires approval for every step. You want to learn something? Get permission. You want to change career paths? Get permission. You want to reinvent yourself? Get permission. The self-taught person rejects this entirely. They evolve without asking. They level up without warning. They reinvent themselves like a warrior sharpening a blade whenever the next battle demands it. They don't wait for a certificate to validate their knowledge. Their results validate them. They don't wait for recognition to prove their progress. Their skills prove them. They don't wait for the world to open a door. They break down walls, walk through, and build new doors for others to follow. This constant evolution makes them unpredictable, and unpredictability is the highest form of power. When others can't anticipate your next move, they can't limit you, they can't contain you, they can't stop you, you become untouchable. As these 3 pillars strengthen, something remarkable happens. You stop competing with others. You stop worrying about opinions. You stop measuring yourself by external standards. You become a category of one. People begin to notice your discipline, your calm energy, your self-assurance, your unshakable focus, your quiet intensity. They sense that you're different, not because you're louder or more aggressive, but because you carry yourself like someone who no longer belongs to the world's script. This is what true danger looks like. Silent, controlled, strategic, self-directed. A person who doesn't need approval is a person who can't be controlled. A person who doesn't fear failure is a person who can't be manipulated. A person who evolves freely is a person who becomes unstoppable. This is the self-taught transformation, the shift from controlled to sovereign, from dependent to powerful. And in the next part, we'll go even deeper. We'll explore the final stage, how to convert self-taught independence into real-world leverage, dominance, and success, the kind that makes the system wish you never figured this out. You've broken the illusions. You've seen through the system. You've rebuilt your mindset from the ground up. But knowledge alone isn't power. Applied knowledge is. The final step of becoming a truly dangerous, self-taught individual is transforming everything you've learned into real-world leverage. The kind of leverage that elevates your life far beyond the limits of the average person. Because the system doesn't fear smart people. It fears capable people, independent people, people who can take action without waiting for permission from anyone. This final transformation comes from three forms of power. Power 1, skill stacking power. 2, value creation power. 3, leverage through independence. When these three forces combine, you don't just survive outside the system, you thrive beyond its reach. Let's break each one down. Power 1, skill stacking. Most people specialize too early. They learn one skill, follow one path, and cling to it for life. But the self-taught mind does something far more powerful. They build a stack of skills that multiply each other. One skill is useful. 2 skills are valuable. But 3, 4, or 5 interconnected skills, that becomes unstoppable. For example, learning psychology plus communication plus strategy makes you persuasive. Learning design plus storytelling plus marketing makes you irreplaceable. Learning coding plus business plus discipline makes you a creator of opportunities, not a seeker of them. Each skill amplifies the next. Each layer adds strength. Each mastery opens new doors. This is how self-taught individuals evolve faster than those stuck inside traditional systems, because they choose skills based on ambition, not curriculum. And within a few years, their skill stack becomes something extremely rare, a unique combination that no one else can compete with. That uniqueness? That's leverage. Power 2, value creation. Here's a truth the system never teaches. Money doesn't follow effort. Money follows value. The system trains people to be workers, to trade time for income, to follow orders, complete tasks, and depend on employers. But the self-taught person becomes a value creator. They solve problems. They innovate. They think differently. They approach challenges from unusual angles because their knowledge wasn't spoon-fed by institutions. This makes them capable of creating value in ways the average person can't. Value brings income. Value brings opportunity. Value brings freedom. The system rewards obedience. The world rewards value. A self-taught individual learns how the world actually works and uses that knowledge to create opportunities instead of waiting for them. This is why self-taught individuals often rise the fastest. They bypass the line. They build their own lane. They create demand by becoming someone the world needs. Power 3, leverage through independence. This is the ultimate power, the one the system tries hardest to hide. When you no longer depend on any one person, any one job, any one institution, you become untouchable. You have full mobility. You have full freedom. You have full control. Independence creates leverage, and leverage creates dominance. For example, if you have the skills to create income on your own, you never fear job loss. If you can learn any skill independently, you never fear change. If you can rebuild your life from zero, you never fear failure. Most people live in constant anxiety because their entire identity depends on external stability. But the self-taught person can regenerate their life from nothing. This makes them impossible to control, impossible to intimidate, and impossible to restrict. This is the kind of power the system cannot contain. When you combine these three forces, skill stacking, value creation, and independence, you transform from a student of the world into an architect of your destiny. You stop living reactively and start living strategically. You stop hoping for opportunities and start engineering them. You stop adapting to the system and start operating above it. This is where everything comes together. This is the final form of the self-taught warrior. A person with a free mind, an independent skill set, real-world leverage, and an identity forged from intention. A person who cannot be boxed in. A person who cannot be dismissed. A person who cannot be controlled. A person who becomes what the system fears most. Someone who doesn't need it. Because once you no longer need the system, You hold the most powerful position a human being can ever reach. Freedom. Pure, unshakable, self-created freedom. And that is what makes you dangerous. Not loudness, not rebellion, not aggression, but the quiet certainty that you own yourself. And no system on earth can ever take that away again.